All right, it is time for what I've watching. Should be past tense. Should be past tense. It's okay. It's all okay. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to do a what I've been watching film version video. And so this is just going to be me chatting about some of the movies that I have seen recently. And I thought it would be fun to just have a bit of a chat about that. I have done a couple of different videos that I've tried to do different, and they have all failed. So I am just going to talk about movies until I get to a certain time length of this video, and then I'm going to wrap it up. And then the next time I watch some more movies, I'm just going to do another video like this. That's the plan, because all the other plans have failed. They have failed. So I'm just going to keep trying stuff until something sticks. So these are going to be spoiler free, just sharing some thoughts on some of the movies that I have seen, and let's get this party started. So first up that I'm going to talk about, and I'm so glad that I actually decided to watch it, is Odd Thomas. I recently read the book Odd Thomas, and I did review it. I will link that review up in the cards if you are curious about that. I read that for my sci-fi, fantasy, and weird project, and lightly for an urban fantasy project that I don't know if it's going to happen. The book is by Dean Koontz. It's an urban fantasy horror, and the movie is obviously the same. It's urban fantasy horror, but it's kind of more like horror comedy. I think the film genre would be horror comedy, and I really, really enjoyed it. It stars Anton Yelchin as Odd. Odd is someone who can see ghosts and things that are supernatural or otherworldly, depending on your interpretation of things, and he takes it upon himself that this is sort of like a calling, something that he should do something about, and so he helps the local law enforcement if there's crossover in between things he finds out and crime-ish things. And the local law enforcement person that he has befriended is played by Willem Dafoe. When I saw it was Willem Dafoe, I was like, I'm gonna like this movie. I love Anton Yelchin. Like, he is so missed. And I didn't even know about this movie. And then it popped up on Amazon or Prime when I was reading the book, and I'm like, I just have to watch this. And I had done a book to film catch up week that turned into 10 days, and I tried to vlog it, and it didn't work on so many levels, and I ended up not enjoying most of the movies, and it was kind of sad, and not like super sad, but just kind of like, you know, when you do a project and then like the results are like not what you wanted. It was kind of like that. But then the last movie I watched for that was Odd Thomas, and I loved it. And what it really helped me understand the tone of the book, because I didn't pick up, because he has a very distinctive way of talking, like his dialogue and how he responds to people, and I thought it was witty, sort of, and it is, but it's more quirky, and I'm like, oh, and then it's sort of like the light bulb went on, and I understood his character and his interactions with different people, and it is very quirky, and this is a very quirky film. Now, one of the weird things is that it also is a horror movie, so it is quite violent, or it is quite disturbing, or both. Probably both. It's been a little bit since I watched it. So it's one that's a bit hard to recommend, because horror comedies, like, sometimes I feel like if you don't like horror, you'd still like this. This still has some pretty scary stuff in it, in my opinion, both conceptually as well as just visually. So both the idea of something and then also just what's depicted. But I still really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. He's just so kind, you know, and in terms of like the plot, like some supernatural type thing, and someone decides to use it for good and helps people out, like, I am a sucker for that plot. I will watch anything or read anything with that plot, like supernatural. Like, there's so many shows where like that's, you know, like the story, even The Fugitive, sort of, in a weird way, not the supernatural part, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just helping people out, and, you know, like, I am gonna watch it. So I really enjoyed it. The only thing that was weird about this that I would say is that I thought it was a little strange that Stormy, who is his girlfriend, her, as well as there's one other woman who's sort of like, they're both like the younger women in the film, and they both always wear really short shorts. Like, really short shorts. And I'm just like in any situations, whether they're working or they're at a barbecue or whatever, and I don't like this was, I don't know if it had something to do with the time. I know it's set in California, but I'm just like, those are really short shorts, like always. So that was my only complaint. I loved Anton Yelchin as Odd. I got more from, like, I understood the book more from seeing the film. Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe was great. I just like him. Like, but he's also a great actor anyway. But yeah, so this was a joy to watch, especially because I had just watched like 10 days worth of films I didn't end up enjoying that much. So that and this was just like icing on the cake because it happened to be a book to film adaptation. It's not why I read the book. I don't even know if I knew it was adapted, and I ended up loving it. So it was wonderful. One of the only other wins during my book to film catch up was Ivanhoe. And so I read Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. So a couple years ago now, I think. And I read it in anticipation of seeing the Robin Hood that came out, I think in 2018. I'm not going to talk about that movie. You can go see my rating on Letterboxd if you're curious. I didn't do a review, but yeah, no. We're going to talk about Ivanhoe. So this is the 1952 or 53 version, and with Robert Taylor, Elizabeth Taylor, and Joan Fontaine. It was so good. I enjoyed it so much. Again, I got more from the story from reading this. One of the challenges I had with the book was that there is a very, one of the characters, Elizabeth Taylor's father and her are Jewish, and when they're introduced into the story in the book, there's a lot of negative comments. But from seeing the film, I understood that those negative comments were all coming from people who were the villains. So that, because I had a hard time with that in the book, like seeing that much prejudice, I was very uncomfortable with it. But when I watched the movie, I realized those comments are always coming from people who were depicted as the villains. So I'm like, oh, that's different. That's different. I'm trying to think of a quick way to describe the story. And I can't. It's kind of like I don't know if it's a hero story. And so much of it, I would just watch the movie. Honestly, I thought it was so, if you like adventure, hero journey, I don't know if I would go as far to say it's epic, because it's mostly centered in not tons of locations, and epic always feels like really vast spanning adventure, but it's like, trying to do the right thing, that kind of vibe. And you like older movies at all, like this was delightful. And there were lists, like there were actual horse jousting, just like on the cover. There was actual horse jousting and fighting and castles and that kind of stuff. Like it was just, I don't know, like that kind of adventure-y thing. I just, I liked it a lot. It was a big shining star in that week, for sure. So it was really, really worth it, which is good. And it's kind of funny because both of these situations I didn't read, like they're book to film adaptations, but I read Ivanhoe because I wanted to watch Robin Hood, and then I read On Thomas and I didn't realize there was an adaptation. So maybe it's something about expectations, could easily be. Another movie that I'm not going to talk too much about beyond recommending it is The Vast of Night. This, I think, says that it's an Amazon original. I watched it on Prime. I loved this. I got this as a recommendation from my sister Jamie. She didn't say anything about it at all. She just recommended it. She might have said it was quirky. I would definitely say that and I would agree with that. I can't remember if she said that, so I don't want to put words in her mouth. But there is a quirky quality to it. It's not like funny quirky. It's like the pace and the tone are a little like unusual, or just, I don't know. So I'm not going to say anything about this one. It's also quite short, which I was looking for at that particular day, because so when movies are over 2 hours, I'm like, I need more time than I usually have to watch them. So this was more like an hour and a half, and it was perfect, and I loved it. I thought it was so interesting and engaging, but I didn't know anything about it. So if you're going to watch it, I definitely would say do not read any descriptions. I didn't, so I don't know what they say, but not knowing what's happening, I think, is the best way to go into the story. So that's just a straight up recommendation. I also just briefly will share that I finally, after 10 years or 8 years or whatever, I finally finished watching the Hunger Games series. I rewatched the first 3 films, which I had already seen, and then I had finally watched Mockingjay Part 2. I don't know how I feel about them, to be honest. No, that's not true. I love the Hunger Games. I love it. It's a brilliant film, especially from the perspective of the art direction and the design and the costuming and the styling. Like, it is gorgeous. And the story is heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, intense, amazing. Catching Fire, it gets serious fast. And I remember when I read Catching Fire, I felt like exactly the same pretty much as when I read Hunger Games. The fast pace, the drive to forward, that kind of stuff. But when I see the film, especially on a rewatch, I felt completely different about it. I was looking at it with different eyes. I was looking for different things. And then by the time you get to Mockingjay, I'm like, this world is so tough. I just don't even want to be here anymore. I just don't want to be here anymore. So I found it a tough watch, and Catching Fire a tough watch. And but I persisted, and I did finally finish the series by watching Mockingjay Part 2. And part of the reason why I pushed through is I didn't want to not finish this. Like, it's been on Netflix like forever. And if it went off Netflix, with me being able to finish it by watching it through Netflix, I would have been so mad. So that was sort of the driving force, is to still see it through a subscription service, like, versus having to buy it. So that was the driver. So I did end up finishing it. I am glad that I finished watching it. It just, I felt kind of the same way about the books. I love the first book. I love the second book. In Mockingjay, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this tone, this sort of, and a lot of people have read it, so a lot of people sort of know sort of where it goes with Mockingjay. And I'm still processing it, to be honest, the final one. And maybe I should journal about it or something, because there's some things that bothered me about it, and there were some things that were enlightening about it, and then I can't remember how close it is to the books. I don't think I want to reread the series, but I don't feel quite resolved on it, which was the goal, which was completion. I'm achievement oriented, I like finishing things, but I feel unresolved, I think, because there's something that I don't know, and I don't know if it's simply that I don't remember the book, so I'm trying to match those up, and then other stuff would be spoilery to say. So I'm just gonna keep processing it, because there's something that's just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about it, and it is weird, and I think a lot of epic stories, I like the beginning. The beginning is always my favorite part, so it makes it feel weird when you complete something and you don't feel great about it, and all I completed was watching. Like, it's not like a hard task. Like, it's just, time and access, right? And energy. You need the energy to watch something. It's more passive than other activities, but it's not you still, for me, first time watches, I want to be engaged enough to really absorb the story, and I really did. And I think I watched part 1 and 2 in the same day, and I was just toast. But then later in the day, I think I watched the first half of Odd Thomas. I fell asleep, and then I watched it again. I think I just started it from the beginning because it was so good. Anyway, those are some of the movies that I have seen recently. Let me know, have you watched these? Have you enjoyed these? Do you like epic stories like Ivanhoe? Do you have any recommendations for films that are of this ilk? Because my goodness, that is just for me like the perfect Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon movie. And that's when I watched it. I might have even had popcorn. It was delightful. It was delightful. So it was wonderful. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. Do you want to hear more about movies? I love talking about movies, and I hope that this is a good way to do so on the channel. So there we go. Those are 1, 2, 3, 3 movies and 1 film series that I've seen recently, and I wonder what I will watch next. I actually don't know, so it'll be curious to see what that is. Thanks for watching!